Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Unravel Your Mind. Welcome, welcome. We're here to help transform relationships to love and to life. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. I've got a ton already lined up from people who pre-submitted, but I always love to hear you live with me in the chat. So feel free to write it in there. If you're watching this on replay, no problem. Still write a question in the chat. I'll be sure to get to it next week. This week is a bit interesting, a bit odd. Lots happening for me personally, so I'll give a little bit of an upfront here. I'm in San Diego, and we are waiting for Hurricane Hillary to approach. It is absolutely 100% humidity right now. I feel like, I am almost sweating. I probably have a glow. I feel like I'm back living in Bali. Super humid. The rain is not, it's here, but it's not torrential quite yet. Luckily, Hurricane Hillary has been downgraded from 4 to a 1, and it's right now coming up the Baja California coastline, and it's, hopefully not hurting Mexico too badly, but it's certainly looking like it's going to hit San Diego as its first landing spot. So that's a little bit unnerving in many respects. We're expecting torrential rain, a tropical storm. Governor Newsom has already issued a state of emergency so that he could get everyone positioned in the event that we have the intense flooding that's being expected. And so yesterday I spent I spent part of the day running to different places to get flashlights and chargers, and because there's an anticipation of the electrical lines being down, the power lines being down. I received a text from the power company. They said, expect to be without power for a while. And so, it creates a lot of anxiety and a fear for a lot of people. There was one moment yesterday, I was like, oh, geez, I got to take this a little more seriously. My mom's been talking about it for, the day prior, like, oh, do all these things. And I was like, yes. And then I did kind of get that moment where I was like, oh gosh, okay, this could be serious. And I felt that like tinge in my body and twinge. And, I just had to go back to just taking a deep breath and just saying, okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone, my mother, the electrical company, Governor Newsom, all these people that could cause anxiety and stress for putting out all these alerts, because hey, we can just be prepared. We have like 48 hours to prepare. Like, how much more notice could you want to have? And so I just felt very grateful for the notification, and I didn't feel stressed out, and I didn't feel anxious, and I didn't feel, my mind went wild thinking about a lot of different things, like, oh my gosh, I'm like 5 rows down the hill from lots of homes, and if they don't take their chairs off their patio, it could fly and hit my skylight, and it could break, and then we can have rain pouring in the home, and then what would I do? And on, right? So you could go on forever with all these different scenarios, and while they're not bad, it's really your association to the scenarios, right? I didn't go down the rabbit hole of the reality that, oh my God, this is going to happen. It's not that feeling. It's just like, this could be a possibility. It could be a possibility that the trash bins blow away. Let me just put them in my garage. So it's really kind of bringing that neutrality back to our emotions and our emotional state that I think is so important in life in general, right? So whatever it is that's starting to cause the stress, the notifications, the emails from work, the tension, with a loved one, all of those things are all in our life for learning and for awakening and for mind monitoring and for mind management and for mind manifesting. What do I really want out of these situations in life? Where do I want to be? How do I want to feel? Well, I don't want to feel anxious and scared and nervous. The reality is that Hurricane Hillary is probably going to hit landfall for the first time in San Diego, which means it's a pretty severe situation. But I'm not going to go into the hysteria of that. And yes, when you're in the situation, you do, it's pretty hard to stop the amygdala from firing and saying fight or flight. So I'm not saying this in the heat of a moment. Then you do have to use your intuitive, instinctual skill sets to navigate the situation. So I'm not downplaying our nervous system. I'm just saying we do want to stay ahead of it, have skills, tools, tips, techniques that we use to really manage the mind. Otherwise, it goes out of control fast. Why the mind loves to spiral on fear more frequently than spiral on love remains a quandary to me, other than I would say that we've gotten ourselves as a society to a place where fear is rampant. It is that virus of the mind, and love is always there. In fact, only love is real. Only love is really who we are. Everything else is a mental thought construct created by the mind and the collective conscious, which is also the collective mind. So it's kind of bucking the system to be calm in the face of calamity, right? But that's where we all want to be. And I think these are great practice periods for everything that's to come. I just watched a video about Sadhguru talking about, big things that are coming. I think anyone in the spiritual community has seen multiple videos of things that are to come, So it's not about being fearful of them. It's about being prepared, and it's about really monitoring our minds, right? Monitoring our thoughts, monitoring where and how we're going to let the mind run us, get it in the back seat and let the soul drive, right? That's what we want to do, is we want to follow spirit. We want to follow intuitively our intuition. And that's what we talk about a lot on the show. And a lot of the answers to a lot of the questions have some similar themes to them, because it is all about managing the mind and getting it in its rightful place. So one of the first questions that I wanted to address is, how do I overcome fear and anxiety in stressful situations? And so I think I've pretty much just answered that. I think some of the tips and tools and techniques that you can use are the ones that many of you already know, but the question is, are you doing them with frequency? And that is yoga. Why? Because yoga is about breath. It's not about the poses. I mean, yes, the poses are part of it, but it's about how you feel and how you're able to breathe deeply into your body and experience your body while you're in the pose, so that while you're at the DMV or in your normal life or standing in line somewhere else that's frustrating, that you can breathe into it, and that you can actually, I don't like the word manage, but that you can feel into your own bodily feelings and functions, and then navigate that back to a neutral state, so that we're not letting our external environment run us and spin us, that we're not letting the person standing in the queue ahead of us create the emotions of our life. Yes, there's annoying things that happen. Yes, there's babies that cry. Yes, there's dogs that bark. Yes, all these things are real things. It's how we respond to them and how we breathe through them and how we allow our minds to be quieted, so that we can still be in the presence of the bliss that exists in every moment of now. So that's what I would recommend to stay out of the fear and anxiety, is take a breath. If you keep getting hit with one thing after another person calls you, oh my gosh, how are you? Are you prepared? Take a breath. Maybe don't answer the phone. Maybe just say, hey, I'm great. Can I call you back? Hey, I'm taking a moment, stating your needs and really being in a peaceful place starts with you and ends with you. So it's your choice to make those decisions to really stay in that neutral state. And it takes practice, no doubt. It takes practice. So take this time now, whether you're living in San Diego or you're living in Maui or you're living in, another area that's having fires and, all these things happening. Take this as a practice period for all that is to come, because we are actually having some pretty amazing things happen right now on planet Earth and in humanity. All right, I'm going to go to the next question. The next question is, why do you think Mother Nature causes such crazy things to happen, like fires and hurricanes? So a lot of discussion has been around, the Maui fires and what's happening there, and, why would this happen? Now, I'm not going to get into how it got started or any of that, because honestly, I don't know, and I'm privy to, a lot of the discussions that are happening, but I don't know that anyone knows exactly what started them. But irregardless, why isn't it that Mother Nature can't just help us a little bit to stop some of these, intense wildfires? Canada's been on fire. There's just a lot of things happening right now. And now this hurricane, and why is it? I'm not suggesting that I have all the answers, but I can tell you how I see it. And how I see it is that Mother Nature is actually helping to clear and cleanse and to create a new earth with us. And sometimes we have to go to the bottom to actually blossom. It's like the cycle of the lotus flower, right? The lotus flower starts in the mud and is in that, some people call it like that winter time of our lives where we're supposed to be really, really, really calm and really collective of our own thoughts and feelings and life and situation. And then there's a time when we actually, get going and we start sprouting up through the dirt. And that takes some effort in the sense of being, for a lotus flower, just being connected. So it's not that they're exuding effort themselves, but their connection to source is providing effort that's pulling them up through the mud. They can't even, the little, seedling can't even see the sun at that point. So sometimes we're in those periods and where we have to trust, right? That lotus flower is trusting that whatever course its life is supposed to take is going to happen. Now, I know you can say, well, that's a flower. A human is a much more complex being, and it is. But Mother Nature is here as an incredible directive for our lives, for how we live, for peace. Mother Nature doesn't want us to suffer. God, Buddha, Allah, Krishna, whatever it is that you believe in, that's all source energy, wants us to live in bliss, peace, love, in joy and happiness. So we just need to align to that energetic vibration to be in the flow. And yes, as a human, we've set up experiences in our life that don't feel great all the time and that we do feel some of that suffering. So I'm not discounting that we do have suffering in our lives. It's how we handle it and how we move through it and how we leverage suffering to really catapult us in other ways. Learn the lessons, move on. So one other example that comes to mind, speaking of natural disasters, is when I was living in Bali, maybe it was about 4 years into me living there, I understood a lot about the Balinese culture at that point. There's still a lot more to learn, but we had a huge threat of the volcano, Mount Agung, exploding. And it was incredibly stressful because the island is small, and if it did blow as was expected, it would have really just obliterated so many lives. And the ash alone could have killed us all, even if the lava didn't touch us. So it was really stressful. And the Westerners handled it one way and the Balinese handled it another way. And neither way was right or wrong. It actually worked really well, I think, in harmony together. Because the Westerners were very much about preparation and about worst case scenarios and how do we, line ourselves up to be ready for this. The Balinese, however, went into the energy space and they spoke to the spirits and they spoke to Mother Nature and they spoke to the powers that be. And they took a totally different angle. And I give the Balinese 100% credit for that volcano not actually exploding. Yeah, you can say you think I'm crazy for saying that and that it's just, there's no controlling Mother Nature. I don't think they were controlling Mother Nature. I think they were working with Mother Nature. And they knew that the lesson that Mother Nature was giving them was that they had gotten, I think these are their words, not mine, but, and any Balinese that might be watching this, please, by all means, give me some information in the chat if you think differently. But the Balinese were working with the energy of the spirits, and they knew that there was a course correction that needed to happen. They knew that there was a lot of things happening with tourism and greed and money, and that they were getting a little off course. The Balinese have empowered hearts. They're beautiful, beautiful people. But they're also influenced a lot by Western modernization, Western industrialization. And I'm not suggesting those things are bad per se, but those things bring ego, they bring entitlement, they bring me, my, this is my company, our company does this. Again, they don't have to be labeled as bad things, but they're not community oriented. And the Balinese are all about community. The Balinese are about helping everyone out. The Balinese are inclusive, they're not exclusive. Westernization is often exclusive. So when the volcano was about to go off, the Balinese went into deep, deep communication with Mother Nature, with the spirits, with everything that be. And I believe that they really committed to making some changes in how they were navigating their energy on planet Earth. And so I wasn't privy to being in those conversations. I wish I was. I would have a lot more insight, and I would love to actually sit with some of the Balinese elders and wisdom agents there that could share a little bit more about how they did work with the spirit. So I'm just saying, maybe we all need a cleansing, which we do. And I'm not saying that we have to have drama and trauma, but if we don't get the message, then that's oftentimes what happens. And it, for us as humans, results in disease and, situations in our life that we wish that we could avoid, and we can avoid. It's just that oftentimes we leave the issues at the core lying dormant, as opposed to healing the wound from the inside out. And so there's a big Band-Aid approach that often happens. And so Mother Nature is always going to help us come back to cleansing and shifting and changing our ways. And that's why when a forest fire starts in a national park, they don't stop it if it starts naturally, because they know that there is a cycle of destruction that takes place before new things are blossomed. It's also all about Ganesha, and that's a whole nother topic. So I'll leave it at that for now. If you're interested in hearing more about this topic, I would love to share more. So give me a little comment in the notes section, and I'll be sure to bring up more insights on that. Okay, let's go to the next question. The next question here that was pre-submitted is, my husband and I have been friends forever, and we're both in our 60s. We care deeply for each other, and yet we don't have sex. Do you think that's a bad thing? I don't even have a desire to anymore. Is this what everyone experiences? First of all, disclaimer number one, I don't think that everyone experiences anything in particular. So that's number one. And number two, I'm not 60 plus, but I do believe that I could speak to this from a human consciousness perspective and a human desire perspective that all humans have. Well, first of all, we're a body in the sense that we have a physical meat suit that we walk around in. And as that body ages, there's hormones that also have an impact on our libido and all of our other systems in our body. And so when our estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone start to dwindle because our bodies don't need to reproduce babies and have offspring, then a lot of things happen, as many of you know, whether you're already in that stage of life or you're younger and you're looking at it going, that's never going to happen to me. The body does age, and there is things that happen with our hormones. So certainly estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, from just a very 3D body perspective, has a huge impact on whether or not you have a sexual desire to have sex. Now, I'm going to speak about it from a more spiritual, conscious standpoint, that one of the other hormones that I love to talk about is oxytocin. And oxytocin is balanced with cortisol. So we know that cortisol is pretty rampant. It causes the anxiety. It causes a lot of this aloneness and really, really wreaks havoc with our whole system. So I've always felt that if we could just raise the oxytocin levels for everyone, if we could put it in the water, which I'm sure is not possible, but if it was like fluoride back way when, that we would have a significant shift, because we would be out of the fight and flight. We'd be out of the high cortisol level impact that creates this hysteria within us, or at least creates something other than feeling supported and safe and loved. So oxytocin comes in easy ways, actually. We don't have to have a supplement. We don't have to have it in the water. If we choose to do things like have more eye contact with people, have more touch, greater intimacy, and it doesn't have to be sexual intimacy. It is intimacy with someone else, like where we actually feel like, oh, you care about me. And oftentimes, and I'm not saying this in an inappropriate way, but you can go to a Starbucks or a coffee shop, a restaurant, and just have niceties with people, just making eye contact, validating their existence on the earth, having them feel seen. And when they feel seen, you feel seen. These small tips help enormously with oxytocin levels. So why am I talking about that when the question is about someone in their 60s wanting to know why they're not interested in having sex with their husband, and is that bad or not? Well, certainly nothing is bad or good. We don't have to label it as that again. But intimacy and sharing with someone that we trust, sharing our soul, doesn't have to ever end, irregardless of hormones, right? So the more sharing that we have in sexual intimacy with someone that we trust, someone that we care for, is priceless. It's priceless for oxytocin levels. It's priceless for energy, our chi energy in our system, our second chakra energy. I believe you can go to your deathbed and still have libido, have the desire. I think it has all to do with your own love of self and your love of others and your ability to express and share your soul with others. I think oftentimes that libido comes down, because of the hormones in our bodies, but also because we just get more complacent with being alone on the planet. Even if we're married, even if we're with someone, we still have this feeling of aloneness. And aloneness is actually okay, but the loneliness part is where it really has a negative impact on us. It has that feeling of sadness. Aloneness has a feeling of, I'm okay with myself and being alone, but I also would love to share myself with someone else who's in a similar vibration, a similar place, a similar space to me. So I think if you're 60 and you're with someone you love and adore, just touch each other more, breathe with each other, practice tantra with each other, which doesn't have to result in sexual intimacy, but having that connection and being seen and feeling each other's energy and feeling the glow and snuggling and all of that, all of that is still a level of intimacy that can be crossed over into something sexual. It doesn't always have to. Communication, just talking about how you like to be touched, how you like to be seen, how you like to be heard. I believe you can start a whole new relationship. I don't know anything about the dynamics of your relationship specifically, but I think you can start a whole new relationship on any day that you want to with a spouse, as long as they're willing. And of course, that's important, that the spouse also needs to want to move into that new space with you and to explore something new. Get a book that you haven't read before. I've got a ton of books that I recommend about relationships in my Awakening and Healing Handbook. You can find it on bethbell.me. You can find it in my Positive Inspirations store. The links in the notes below on Amazon. It's great. There's lots of things. Don't miss out. If you're with someone you love, do not miss out on having sexual intimacy. No matter if you're 60, 70, 80, or 90, or 30, or 20, it doesn't matter. If you're not having that intimacy, there's just something for you to explore there. And I very much encourage you to do it, because I think you'll find that you'll have a lot of fun once you do. All right, let's go to the next question. Pre-submitted. Is there anything else coming in on the live? Not quite yet. Let's see. Let's keep going. How to overcome self-loathing. I've done so much spiritual work, including psychedelics, and I continually find myself going back to hating myself, even when I'm doing so many great things in life. Well, I'm sure that this person, having done all the spiritual work they've done, knows that everything is a creation of the mind. And while sometimes that can be really frustrating to hear, because we know a lot of times that it's coming from our mind, but it's how do we stop it? How do we shift it? How do we move it? And sometimes we get so involved in tips, tools, techniques of the mind that we forget about what's being stored in the body. So sometimes there's the trauma, the emotion that's stored in the body. So that's one thing I would suggest exploring, is maybe some psychosomatic work, something that helps you really get into your body. How do I feel? Why am I why am I self-loathing? Oftentimes it's something coming from a program from childhood, something that was very impressionable in your life. Maybe it wasn't from childhood, maybe it was from later on, but childhood is always that juicy space where all the programs get laid based on our parents and our upbringing and the community that influenced us. So that could be, and sometimes it's something so simple. It could be that you were 5 on a playground and you were left out, and you wanted to be part of that community of other children, and yet then you were, by yourself, and you had all these thoughts about why they don't want you there, when in fact they may not have had any of those thoughts about you specifically, but you internalized it as that. So getting back into those deeper threads of why are you feeling that you're not of value, because in the end, isn't it just that? The mind is always wanting to place our value in relationship to our external world, and that is just crazy. It happens to all of us. It happens to me in different ways, not necessarily with self-loathing, because that's not something that I am challenged with right now in my life. But there's certainly circuitous loops of thoughts that I am having to get in there and really shift and navigate and go deeper on, to see what are these storylines, where did they come from, why are they here, but what's the lesson from them, right? And it's the mind that is always in judgment. That is not you. That is not you at your core is light. Light is love. Love is light. It's a vibration. It's a high vibration. We have thought forms that are at varying levels of vibration. Hawkins, David Hawkins. I had his book here. Where is it? Power of Force. Yeah, David Hawkins, Power of Force. Power versus Force. He's written several books, and he talks a lot about the different vibrational levels of different words and thoughts, right? So words are also representations of thoughts. So really tuning into those lower vibrational thoughts and switching them into higher vibrational thoughts, and understanding what is the thread that's pulling you down into those lower vibrational thoughts. And sometimes it's just your environment, that you are constantly comparing yourself to others. So find an environment that vibrates at a high level. And sometimes this is even hidden, because you can be in a beautiful place. It doesn't mean like a low vibration is a place of poverty or a place of, oftentimes those are related for very specific reasons, but you can be in like a beautiful place and still feel a lower vibration. And it might be because there's a different value system on money, a value system on popularity, a value system that isn't related to who you really are. So it's always about going back to the basics, which I know that's so frustrating sometimes, because we feel like we're always back in the basics. Like, why do I have to keep dealing with the same darn thing? But it's the basics. It's those basic thoughts that we started at a young age. And when we spend all of these years having those thoughts and then building our environments around those thoughts, it oftentimes takes many, many years to unravel them. That's why the show is called Unravel Your Mind, right? It's unraveling those thought constructs and getting down into them. But don't just stay in the mind. Go to the body. Go to, how is my body reflecting those thoughts of the mind in my subconscious or my conscious mind? And also in spirit, ask your guides to come in, show you different things, help you to feel different energies, experience life in a different way. So don't forget about the mind, body, spirit, mind, body, soul connection. It's so important, because otherwise we spend a lot of time sometimes on our mind, because my mind's very strong, and we need to be more in our body, and we need to like feel what that feels like. All right, let's see what the next question is here. I've been told that I give off the vibe for people to not touch me. I'm not an overly touchy person, but I do like to touch and be touched. Any thoughts on why I would be making people feel this way? Well, that's just an energy, right? That's an energy of a thought about yourself and about how you fit in. And touch, can be trauma. It's sometimes hard to know without having all of the background, but touch can be a trauma response, that you were touched inappropriately, or you weren't touched. Some people grow up in families where you're not touched. Some people grow up being touched without permission by someone, and you've never been able to talk about it. You didn't even realize that it was inappropriate until, many years later in your adulthood, and you're like, wow, maybe you came up with it and found it in a hypnotherapy session, or you found it in one of the healing modalities. So touch is a beautiful thing. And as I just said earlier, oxytocin, it goes up with touch. So we want touch. We can be alone. We don't have to need somebody else. But man, is it beautiful when we can be in relationship with people and just be raw and vulnerable and see and be seen and touch and be touched, not inappropriately, but with permission and with consent. And so somewhere along the line, there may have been a lack of consent, or there may have been no teachable skill set of how to touch or touch appropriately. So dig into those, see if that's relevant for you. And I think touching is a big thing for a lot of people. And I was just chatting with a friend actually who's going to a workshop, and it's all about really being able to express yourself more in the sexual arena, asking for what you want, saying what you don't want. And we were just, finding it interesting how for a lot of people, and including her, she said, I just get like, closed up when I think about having to tell someone, no, I don't like that. Or would you do this to pleasure me in a sexual way? Why did we get those programs? I mean, they go way back. They're way back. They're not even ours. They're not, in some cases, not even our ancestors. I mean, in a lot of cases they are, but I'm just saying that, there's just been a lot of shame that's been projected out around sexual intimacy, and it's unnecessary. So dig deep in there, see what you got. Again, in my Awakening Healing Handbook, you can get it on bethbell.me. I list a lot of different healing modalities and ways that you can get into that subconscious mind, books you can read. So feel free to dive in there and see if there's something that resonates for you to really get deeper into these questions and quandaries. Okay, next question. I'm living with a friend of 40 years. We're compatible and enjoy each other's company. We're not romantically involved, but thinking about getting married for logistical reasons like taxes, power of attorney, health benefits, etc. Do you think marriage is a good idea? Honestly, I love marriage, and also I don't think marriage is necessary. I think it's so individualized what it is that you feel you want and need. And yes, in this dimension, marriage can provide some benefits for the system, for the things you mentioned, the power of attorney, the taxes, for comfort. But I think the question is, I'm always going to take it up a notch and just say, let's look at this a little bit more from a spiritual perspective. What is it that you're looking for from like the marriage? Is it that you just want the comfort? Is it that you really trust this person? I mean, that's a big part of it, right? Because if you really trust this person, then maybe this is a good thing. Maybe this is a way to get some benefits, and just to know that somebody's got your back. I think there's just a lot to be said for that. But emotionally, if you're thinking that you're not in it, did I read that right? That you're not in it for the romance, I think ask yourself the question, why don't I want the romance? What is it that I might be stopping myself from not wanting the romance? And the questions, a while back, I think are also good to feel into, because that's about, what am I missing out on and having a real deep soul connection with someone? Maybe you're not set up in this lifetime to want that, to need that. So it's no judgment. It's just like, why wouldn't you want the juiciness of being, in romance, and romance, not in the romantic love illusion standpoint, but romance in the sense of real soul sharing, really like having that intimacy. So ask yourself some of those deeper questions. I also, if you do think you want that, or you do think that you want to date other people, then having that marriage contract is going to be, an obvious barrier for many reasons, but also energetically, it's not necessarily going to bring someone else in. And so if you're okay with that, if you're really not looking for someone else and you've got everything you think you need from this relationship, go for it. I'm not against any of that. I think, you could do it just for the logistics and the benefits. I just would hate to see you short yourself if you have desire to be soul sharing and to have something deeper with someone, because I think that's such a beautiful experience. Okay, I think we've got a couple of questions coming in on the live. Let me just look here. Sometimes I don't want to shake hands. I feel bad, so I often give in. But the other day, I refused to shake hands with someone I just met. I don't know why. I felt really bad and I felt like explaining, but I couldn't because I had no reason. Do you think it's my trauma? I don't know. The first thing that comes to mind when I was reading that is I feel like there might just be a cultural thing, and that cultural thing, if that's what it is, could have created the trauma, because culturally you might have been taught to not exchange energy with someone, not touch someone for whatever reason. It might have been like, well, we don't do that because we don't exchange germs. Like there might have been like an ancestral reason why shaking hands wasn't something customary. It might have been that it was taboo. Like I'm thinking maybe a couple generations back, like that you didn't do that, that you didn't exchange an energy space. Culturally now, speaking from a more, first world American perspective, shaking hands is customary. That is like saying hi. That is right. That's a very basic thing. But it's not with everyone. Oh, well, then that's really interesting too, because you're probably really intuitive and you probably don't want to enter that person's space, or you don't know yet if you want to enter that person's space energetically. Don't beat yourself up about this one. I think trust yourself if there's a reason, and don't feel bad about not doing it. I'm trying to think what you could say that might just diffuse the situation so that culturally the other person doesn't feel like, well, why wouldn't you do this? Nothing's coming to me right at this moment, but it might. I'm going to channel it through by the end of this. What you could say that would just help just diffuse it. But feel into it a little bit more. What is it about is there a thread in the types of people that you don't want to shake hands with? And maybe there's not. Maybe it's just super individualized and there's no threads. Then I think it's very intuitive of you, and you're just feeling into, I just don't want to exchange energy with this person in any way. But if there's a thread, there might be something deeper there, and there might be a trauma, but it might also be, I don't know, just throwing it out there. I'm not saying this is you, but it might also be something having to do with confidence. Sometimes we don't want to do something because we're just, and I don't mean confidence like in a condescending way. I mean also like in a extrovert versus introvert way, right? Like, so if you're an introvert, maybe confidence isn't the right word, but it's like sometimes there's a hesitancy, and that's not bad. It's just who you are. It's just honoring who I am. I'm more, I like to just feel into people before I get into those spaces, right? And maybe that's what you say. You just say to the person, I'm just not a handshaker. Thank you. Nice to meet you. I'm just not into handshaking. I don't have a reason why, right? That's the truth. Like, and you smile as opposed to feeling like, oh, I didn't do what you wanted me to do, right? Because that's the thing about social construct ideas, is that we feel like we need to fit in. We feel like we need to do something because someone else thinks that that's the right thing to do, or that everybody else thinks it's the right thing to do. And so maybe you're just a renegade. Maybe you're just like, yeah, no, this is just me practicing my truth. This is me just saying, hey, thank you. And, maybe it's just namaste. Like, I honor the divine in you. I honor the divine in everyone. Maybe it's not that there's something bad about the person. You just thank you. And that's it. and just don't feel bad about it. Get yourself to that place where you're not feeling bad about it. So I know I covered that in a range, but I think it depends upon, where each individual really is and the why behind it. And I think you bringing up the question and having the awareness around it, and hopefully based on what I just talked about, it brings more like, oh yeah, that's me, or, oh no, that's not me, but oh yeah, that part's me. So if there's still more there and it's not clear, please give me a little bit more, and I'm happy to talk into that a little bit. But I think you may just be a more introverted person. You may be a more intuitive person. You may be someone who just isn't interested in sharing germs with everyone, and all of that is okay. So see what the lesson might be in there for you. And maybe it's, like I said, just speaking your truth. Sometimes those basic things are where we get, they're great practice in life. Okay, great. Yes, thank you. It's, the little heart is in the way. Thank you, always. Something to be me. All right, so great. Thank you for that question. I appreciate that. Let's go to the next question. All right. My father is elderly and lives with me. I'm okay with that and enjoy helping out. However, I'm constantly having to be the caregiver, and taking my dad to the doctors all the time is a challenge for me mentally. My schedule isn't that intense, so I have time, but I don't like the energy in medical facilities. What should I do? I get it. What comes to me is find a support team. I think, I don't know the ages of you or of your dad, but yes, these medical facilities can be real downers. It sounds like your dad is living with you as well. And so you might have some influence over their diet, over their exercise, over their mental health that could help them keep them out of some of these medical facilities. So that would be step number one, is just see like what kind of influences might you be able to have to try to help them stay out of the medical facilities. And the second is, I would choose which ones you think are most important for you to go to, where they need the most support. If they're just checkups and it's not something like intense where you need to be there and take notes, reach out to your community. If it's not your close family, if it's not, your neighbor or someone, I bet you there's someone that you may not know. Nextdoor might be a place, the app Nextdoor, to just put it out there. Hey, is there someone out there that would be willing to help me out with my elderly father and take them to their appointments, right? And maybe you get 2 or 3 people that you trust, you build relationship, you have them over for dinner, and you see what you think about them. And they may have nothing to do. They may be lonely, and they would love nothing more than to take your father to the medical communities and have the companionship and the camaraderie and the conversation, right? So I think sometimes we try to do all this stuff on our own, and we think that we have to take care of our parents, and we do, and we should to some degree, but not to the degree that it impacts our own mental health. So, I mean, look, if you have the cash and you can pay someone, that's also an option. But I really love it when it can feel more community oriented, when it can be that you're not having to pay someone to do something, that someone's doing it because they just want to do it. They want to help out. They want to be that support, that community feel. So there's probably lots of ways that you can find. If you go to a church or you have any kind of community event that you are part of, just put it out there. Just say, hey, I'm looking for someone who has some time. You never know. It could be a young mom who has kids that are in school, and she misses her children so much that she would love nothing more than to take someone to an appointment, not all the time, but once a week or whatever. So ask for help, ask for support, ask for others to be part of your close-knit community. And I think you'll find that you'll get a lot of relief, and you'll build a bigger support network than you could have ever imagined. So try that out. Let me know, right? Write me back. I'd love to hear what happens as a result of that. Okay, next question. My wife passed almost 5 years ago. My apologies, or my condolences, I should say, for that. And my 2 children are both in their mid-20s and in their careers. My daughter is single, and my son is getting engaged. He wants to use his mom's ring to propose. My daughter doesn't want the ring, but she also doesn't want him to use it. Any solutions you could recommend? Lots of things come to mind as I read this, actually. One is listen, just listen. It sounds like there's some emotion, and rightly so, behind the ring, behind the sentiments of the ring. So spend some time with your daughter and ask her, how she's feeling about it. And yeah, and what her thoughts are around it. And the other thing that comes to mind is most of the times we have like the engagement ring and then we have the wedding ring. And so maybe there's one or the other that could be used, like maybe your daughter could keep half of it. So if she doesn't want the ring, maybe she keeps the wedding band, and maybe she allows her brother to use the actual engagement. Oh, right. No, the engagement ring is usually the big diamond. Sorry. And then the wedding band is usually the one that has, the accent to it. So maybe the daughter keeps the wedding band, or I guess it could go either way, but I was thinking that the son could then use the big stone. And if there was even, some interesting sentiments around that, because it feels like maybe you want some new energy, use the stone, have it reset, and then even the setting could possibly stay with the wedding band. It's just coming to me for your daughter, and just put a different stone in it. Right? You can take the whole, like a lot of times there are the prongs, just take the whole piece off and have something completely different set. Maybe it's an emerald, maybe it's a amethyst, maybe it's something different. And it becomes two separate rings, so that the wedding, the wedding band can still remain as is. And then that diamond can be used and on to next generations. And that the engagement band can also be used. So there's lots of options, but first, listen, talk emotions, talk feelings, just get into all of that. Just plan. I know women like to typically talk longer about their emotions. So as the dad, and things are often, not always, but often more black or white, I would just plan to have like a good long 30 minutes to an hour. And if it's not that great or not great or whatever, like just be unattached to the time, but set the time aside, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. And listen. And then I think that will open up a lot of gateways. And then, put some of these potential options out there. Have your daughter come back with some options, put the options out to your son, see how he feels. And also, depending upon whether your son's proposed or not, well, I guess your son hasn't proposed, but you might want to have just like a general conversation around it, because, the wife to be might not want the diamond, like she may have an emotion around it that's like, oh, I don't want that responsibility to take, a piece of jewelry that came from, your mother who's passed on. So I think asking everyone involved, like, hey, it could be, if you don't want to spoil the engagement, like, hey, how sentimental are you about, jewelry? My mom has a lot of different jewelry, and I was considering, she's got bracelets, she's got earrings, and I was considering, having one of those pieces reset for you. How do you feel about that? Right? So you don't have to give away the engagement, but you just kind of get the feeling from your potential new wife to be. How does she feel about it? All right. Let's see if there's any other questions on our live. I think that's the last I have in the pre-submitted, and we're right down to the wire. So if you liked any of the content on here, please do not forget to like and subscribe. It helps a lot, and you'll be notified. If you hit the bell, you'll hear all about when we're going live next, or when I go live next. And I so appreciate everyone who submitted questions in advance. I hope this was helpful. Please let me know in the comments. I can't wait till next week. Write any questions that have come up in replay, and I'm happy to go back and I'll be sure to put them into next week's show. So thank you so much for being with me today, and I wish you a very blissful week. And please say some prayers and intentions for all of the San Diego and anyone that's in the path of the Hurricane Hillary. So with that, sending lots of love out to you and yours, and I look forward to next week.